How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Sports Talk Podcast, Fantasy Baseball Advice Show with your host, Alec Pecino. Here's my weekend recap from Fantasy Baseball, starting with my player of the weekend, which is Taj Bradley. He went on, I believe it was Saturday, he went 7 innings, gave up 1 hit, no earned runs, gave up 2 walks, struck out 5 against the Yankees. And it was one of his better starts of the season. And you will see later on where I have him in my updated rankings for my starting pitchers. And I will compare him to somebody that's on my waiver wire here in a minute. But before we get to that little programming note, you will see my first of 4 college football podcast episodes over the next few weeks. Tomorrow, going over the Big Ten and giving you official record predictions as I can for the Big Ten Conference. But back to Fantasy Baseball Weekend Recap. And so here's my waiver wire for Fantasy Baseball for the pitching side. My first pitcher to add off the waiver wire, he is making his season debut on Friday for the Mets. It is Kodai Senga of the Mets, who is 63% rostered. And all these guys that I talk about are under 80% rostered. Senga goes on Friday. It appears he's going to go Friday against the Braves. I would add him, but I would not start him Friday because the Braves, I know they've struggled, but I would add him and see what happens. Maybe he has a really good start and you're like, okay, I added him, now it's time to start him. Maybe he has a bad start and you're like, okay, no, I'm going to drop him and pick up somebody else. My number 2 pitcher to add off the waiver wire is J.P. Sears, and he pitched the other day. He went 5 2/3, gave up 9 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Now with Sears, it's going to kind of be hit or miss with the strikeouts. There's going to be games in there where he gets you 4 or 5 strikeouts. Then he's going to have the games where he gets you 7 or 8 strikeouts. But he does walk a few. And Sears right now is only 5% rostered. 5.5% rostered. I think if you need help with pitching because you're still without Jacob deGrom, Jeffrey Springs, Ryan Pepio, who just went back on the injured list. If you're without them, I would consider adding J.P. Sears. The next guy I'm going to talk about is Tobias Myers from the Brewers. He is 22.2% rostered. I would consider adding Tobias Myers if also you need help with your starting pitching, because like I said a minute ago, you're without the bevia of Jacob deGrom, Blake Snell, or whoever else is in your rotation. I would consider adding Tobias Myers. And then I skipped one guy. That's my bad. Pete Fairbanks. If you need help with saves, I would consider Pete Fairbanks of the Rays. He is 57.2% rostered. I would consider adding Pete Fairbanks. And the last guy, this is a stash because the Rays have not said he's nearing the end of his rehab stint, recovering from Tommy John surgery. It is Jeffrey Springs. And Springs is only 9% rostered, 9.2. I would consider adding Jeffrey Springs to your roster and stashing him on your bench. Or if you have an open IL spot, putting him on your IL until he comes back and is activated off the 60-day injured list. The next segment of the show is my second half bounce back, and I've got 4 players that I'm going to talk about in this segment. The first one is Brandon Lau. Now, I know I dog on Brandon Lau a lot of the Brandon Lau of the Rays a ton, but it seems like he may be in store for a big second half, even though he's not going to play all the time. He's probably only going to play against lefties. So, if you need a guy that you can put in the lineup, again, like today, the Rays play at 1 o'clock. So, if you want to pick up Brandon Lau, I would do it now before the Rays game at 1 o'clock, because Lau is in the lineup. And I would consider, I think Lau is in for a big second half, like I just said. The next guy is Seiya Suzuki. I know Seiya's had a couple of injuries, but I think that Seiya Suzuki is in for a huge second half. If he can cut down on his strikeout rate, his strikeout percentage. If he can cut down on that, he will have a huge second half. The third guy is Angels starting pitcher Griffin Canning. And with Canning, I think he needs to throw his slider more. I know right now he made a start over the weekend, went 3 1/3 innings. He left with irritation in his throwing elbow from throwing his slider. But from the videos I've watched of that start, his slider looked really good. And I think he needs to key in on that more and throw it a lot more. And the last guy is Edward Cabrera of the Marlins. Now with Cabrera, I think what he needs to do is he needs to cut down on missing the strike zone. He needs to start throwing more strikes. If he throws more strikes, he's going to have a lot more success with finding the zone. Hi, Luke. He's going to have a lot more success with finding the zone. And yes, I am talking about baseball. Talking about fantasy baseball. He's going to have a lot more success with finding the zone. And hey, I'm a Rays fan, but I also do like the Braves. But anyway, what I was saying about Cabrera is he needs to find the zone more. And I think if he does, he's going to have a lot more success with getting strikeouts. Now, here's my waiver wire hitters edition. I've got 5 guys on the waiver wire for the hitters. The first one, and I've got 2 shortstops on here, because Ozzie Albies he's probably going to end up going on the injured list for the Braves. So if you need help in the middle infield at short or second base, here's a couple guys that can help you with that. The first one is Zach Neto of the Angels. He is 11% rostered. 11.1% rostered. And I think Neto, he's turning the corner and turning into a guy that I can trust playing every day, putting him in my fantasy baseball lineup, and not having to worry. Number 2 is Giants rookie outfielder Elliot Ramos. He is 44.2% rostered. I think if you need outfield help, because you've been struggling and you've been playing the matchups, I would consider Elliot Ramos as a must add for your fantasy baseball team. And the next guy is Jake Berger from the Marlins. And Jake Berger is only 18.2% rostered. I would consider adding Berger if you need first base help. And he's my number one replacement for Yandy Diaz, who is out on the restricted list right now, dealing with a personal issue. And I think Berger is a fine waiver wire add. I'm not going to say rest of the season. For the short term, if you have Yandy Diaz and you're looking for somebody else, other options might be Nathaniel Lowe. Nate, I like to call him Nate because that's what I've known him as. Nate Lowe. Michael Bush. Nate Lowe, Michael Bush. Isaac Paredes, if he's somehow available in your league. Tyler Locklear, who's going to get recalled by the Mariners because they just put Ty France on waivers. Spencer Horwitz of the Blue Jays, who's been playing second base a lot for the Blue Jays. My number 4 waiver wire add for hitters is outfielder of the Rockies, Brenton Doyle. And Brenton Doyle is 50.3% rostered. And I am going to say this. I think the Rockies have found their center fielder moving forward. And I think that Brenton Doyle is the perfect guy to add. He's going to get you home runs. He does steal a lot of bases. And I'm going to give you a bonus waiver wire ad before I give you my last one, and that is Jared Kelenic. I'm mentioning the Braves. Jared Kelenic of the Braves. I don't know his exact roster rate, but I think he needs to be rostered in all categories leagues, all points leagues. Jared Kelenic. If you need outfield help, Jared Kelenic can, and I think will be a league winner. And the last guy is Mason Wynn of the Cardinals, shortstop. Only 15% rostered. Mason Wynn. Like I said, if you need outfield help, if you need help in the middle infield at shortstop or second base, get Mason Wynn. And then the second baseman you should probably pick up is Zach Geloff. Now here are my 5 prospects to stash because I think these guys will get promoted or called up. And one of them being, the first one is a Rocky. It is Sterling Thompson, first base / outfielder. I think the Rockies, when they trade off some guys, they're going to start calling up more prospects, whether it be Thompson, whether it maybe be Zach Veen, but I think Zach Veen is still maybe not going to come up till maybe September because they don't want him losing rookie eligibility. They want him to have rookie eligibility for next season. So I think Zach Veen will not come up this year, but I think Sterling Thompson has a chance, and same with another Rocky prospect. That being outfielder Yanquiel Fernandez. And Rockies fans, if I said that wrong, thank you, Luke. I appreciate this shout out. I think the Rockies are, like I said a minute ago, I think the Rockies are going to call up some of their young prospects. The number 2 prospect to stash, and there's already been reports that he's going to probably be recalled from AAA this week to start for the Marlins. It is Max Meyer. of the Marlins. And I'm going to say this. If you have an open spot on your bench, go ahead and stash Max Meyer. Because I don't think, when he comes up, I don't think he's going back down to AAA. I think he's going to stick with the Marlins the rest of the year. My number 4 prospect to add is... My number 3 prospect to add, is Reds outfield prospect Jacob Hurtubise. I think the Reds are another team. They're in the wild card mix, but do we know if they might trade a couple outfielders in order to open up road for Jacob Hurtubise? I would stash Jacob Hurtubise. Now to my number 4, and it's another pitcher. It is Braxton Ashcraft from the Pirates. And Ashcraft, I think, will get called up this year. And then my 5th prospect, and this guy to stash, and this guy's in Double-A for the Rays right now. It's Mason Montgomery, left-handed pitcher. Does Montgomery get called up this year? Possibly. If he does, it's probably in September when the Rays make a flurry of roster moves every day because of the rosters expanding. And now, here are my updated starting pitcher rankings for the rest of the season. And I do change these every week, and I will be posting the updated version of the rankings every week on my community polls on YouTube. Here's some of the changes I made for this week. The first one is I moved Rays Shane Baz all the way up from, he wasn't ranked in the rankings the last time I did him, to number 57. I've been impressed so far with what Shane Baz has done in his return from Tommy John surgery, even though it's kind of been underwhelming. But I think Baz is in for a big second half, and I think that he could be a league winner. My next one is Yankees Garrett Cole. Yes, he was outside my top 30, but it seems like he's back. So he's moved from 35 to 16 in my latest starting pitcher rankings. The next guy is Andrew Abbott. And I don't know how Abbott gets away with having good starts every week. Every time he's out there, every 5th day starting. He's moved up from number 51 in my rankings in starting pitchers to number 45. Another guy that's moved up in my rankings is Taj Bradley. He was at number 80 in my rankings, which I only do 75. If you're outside the top 75, you don't get recognition. So he was at number 80. He moved all the way up to number 35. And then, unfortunately, we have 2 guys that we had to move down the rankings. One of them flipped with his teammate, and that was Brian Bayo of the Red Sox. He was at number 23. He moved down to number 40. Brian Bayo, this hurts me to say. I was really expecting big things from Bayo this year. He has struggled mightily. And then the last one is Hunter Green of the Reds. Teammate of Andrew Abbott. I have moved Hunter Green down from 8 to 29. I can't remember. You can look at the rankings and see who I put at number 8. It might have been Garrett Cole, or it might have been somebody else. But those are the updated rankings. And little programming notes. At 12 o'clock, so tomorrow at 12 p.m. tonight at 10 p.m. is going to be another episode of the South Florida Bulls Dynasty on College Football 25. Tomorrow, we also have another episode. We have another episode of the Fourth and Long podcast at 12 o'clock, and it's the Big Ten Conference preview as well as their official record predictions. And I know I might get some flack for the record predictions I'm going to give certain teams in the Big Ten. And also tomorrow at 5 o'clock will be another episode of the South Florida Bulls Dynasty. And on Thursday, we will have 8 o'clock on Thursday will be another episode of the South Florida Bulls Dynasty. Friday, I know the last couple Fridays I haven't been posting videos. That's because I've been busy with family. I'm going to try to get back to posting. I know this Friday I won't be able to because I'm going out with hanging out with some friends that I haven't seen in a while. But we are back on the grind now for college football season. And that's another thing is, if you haven't subscribed already, I highly recommend subscribing. And I highly recommend joining the MVPs, which I'm going to shout both of them out right now. One of them is Jonathan Bauman. And the other one is my dad, Joe Pecino. They are both MVPs of this channel. If you become an MVP, you get first dibs at the upset picks for college football every week. You get behind the scenes footage of my trip that I'm going on in September. And if you already did subscribe, I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all my subscribers and all the people that have joined the Sports Talk Podcast family and that have also become a MVP on this channel. And we also, the merch, I will be tagging the merch in the video after I'm done. Please also, if you feel obligated, you don't have to, but if you feel like you want to, purchase some merch, and then when you get that merch, take a picture and DM it to me on Instagram, and I will shout you out in the next video. But that's going to wrap up today's video. I will see you tonight at 10 o'clock with another episode of the South Florida Dynasty. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Peace!